Good evening, everyone. My name is Kyle Roddey, and I'm from Goshen, New York, Main Street, USA. I had an amazing childhood growing up right here in Goshen. Great American weekend, the historic track, walking downtown after school, getting a slice of pizza, what was Little Italy. I loved my community from an early age. And I knew after I went away to college in Binghamton, I was going to want to return home and rejoin that same community. I always look forward to spring break, winter break, summer break, to see my friends, to reconnect with those I graduated with, or the year before, or year after me. It was always magical seeing Goshen in the wintertime, the snow falling down on the streetlights, the wreaths, the tree downtown, the monuments. There was something special that I knew wanted to be part of my life always. But every time I came home on various breaks, the amount of my friends who graduated with me became a little less every time. Some people had moved away. Some people spent summers where they were going to university. Some joined the private sector in other cities. And over time, more and more people stopped coming home at the same time. This is called youth flight, and that's what I'm here to talk about today. Youth flight is when those young people grow up in an area and leave and typically don't come back. It's not unique to Goshen, New York. It's all over the Hudson Valley. New York State is one of the one states in the country to lose population. And it's a global situation. The United Nations predicts that by 2050, 2 out of every 3 people will live in cities at the expense of suburban areas and rural areas. Now, to be very clear, this is not a criticism of those who don't live in Goshen anymore. My own sister, who I love dearly, lived in New York City, Denver, and currently in Dallas. And I would encourage every young person graduating from Goshen or who has to see the world, climb those mountains, explore distant islands, and find their own niche in the world, wherever it may be. But I'm a Goshen guy. I remember growing up hearing stories about people that owned buildings 100 years ago, presidents visiting the village, hearing about people that used to run the bank, and they were also the chief of the fire department, and on Sundays they ran the ambulance themselves. And I think there's magic in that. I think there's something uniquely special with going to the gas station and seeing friends, family members, parents of friends, grandparents of friends. I think there's something in that that's hard to replicate in a large city. But again, that's just me. We all have our own opinions, and everyone writes their own story every day. But I want to start with the premise that it would probably be a nice thing to retain more young people in Goshen and communities like us. Not necessarily, again, for each individual, but I think for the strength of the community, sustainability, and economic reasons. We educate our young people in the hopes that they graduate with that education that we invested within them, join our local economy, start a local business, employ others, and build our local economy. When more people are leaving than are coming in, that math equation doesn't give us the return on investment that we would like. So the question is, what can we do to encourage more young people to remain or return to Goshen? Well, to answer that question, we need to know, well, why are people leaving to begin with? We did a study. We surveyed over 200 graduates of Goshen, and we asked, did you return, did you not? If not, why? So we learned the reasons why people haven't returned, which are varied and diverse. Out of those 200 people, 110 have not permanently returned to reside in Goshen. And again, that's not a knock on them. I was talking to a young man over the weekend, graduated from Goshen 4 years ago, and he is so excited to live in Manhattan and experience city life. And I encouraged him to do so. But we, on a global level, how do we convince these people it is worth returning here? A lot of people said they left for economic reasons. They were looking for jobs that didn't exist in Goshen. If you want to be an astronaut, chances are Orange County is not going to be the home when you're building your career. I have friends that graduated law school with more than $250,000 in debt, looking for a legal job their first year out that will allow them to put a dent in those student loans. Frankly, in the Hudson Valley, those jobs are nearly impossible to find. So for some people, economics preclude them from residing locally again. Others have fallen in love with someone that they met at college and moved to a different location, or their family moved. Others have stated, which is no surprise to a lot of us, the cost of living in New York State is difficult and precludes them from returning home. So we know about a lot of the whys, but what about the hows? What can we do to convince people to return to communities of the Hudson Valley and suburbia all over America? Well, the exciting thing is, I think that there are things that we can start doing now, not just in Goshen, but in all those areas. But the first thing we need to identify is, what do those people need when choosing a community? Well, first thing they do is they need somewhere to live, somewhere to lay their head every night. And for young people, 20s, early 30s, especially in these days after the Great Recession, those people aren't buying a home straight out of university yet. So if we don't have housing options for them, and this isn't an advertisement for apartment buildings, but the reality is, if you think about young people and where they want to reside, what they can afford, if we don't have those as options, they're not going to be coming. So we as a community need to be cognizant of that. We need to provide local programming and opportunities. We need to make communities fun, allow young people to build memories when they're growing up, like I was able to do at the Great American Weekend and the like, that will help them tell their story and want to return. Music, arts, walkability. But the number one factor is economics. And this is where things get interesting. In the past, if you wanted to go into an emerging field, nanotechnology, biotechnology, chances are you were going to the San Franciscos, the New York Cities. But the world is changing and economics are changing. Brick and mortar offices are no longer required. Teams can work collaboratively with 20 different people in 20 different countries without skipping a beat, sometimes even more effectively than people in one office setting. Transportation costs continue to go down in a lot of ways. And what we're going to see through automation is a lot of the positions that were sought after in the future when I was growing up and others were growing up might not exist, but might be replaced. So the question is, what can we do as a community, as suburbia, as Goshen, as the Hudson Valley, to identify things now to allow people interested in those fields to reside locally, to keep building on the same local story? The answer is partnerships. The answer is working together. Private sector businesses can work with universities, local school districts, nonprofits, to identify areas young people are going to want to be in, create incubators here locally. Some of these things are already happening. Recently, there was a creative workspace called CoLab in Goshen. And I haven't talked to the owners of that space, so they don't know this is being mentioned today. But it's an office where you can come in on your own. You don't need to be hired by any company. You just go in and work and leave when you want to leave. That's my understanding of it. I haven't been inside yet. But offices like that allow people to work collaboratively in places they wouldn't have been able to do before. If we can look for these new markets, build the skill sets locally, and create private-public partnerships to facilitate those, we can at least give our young people choice. The allure of Manhattan or Hong Kong is never going to go away for a lot of young people, and I want them to meet their dreams. But in the meantime, let's make Goshen and places like it as marketable and magical as we all know it can be. Thank you.